Okay, sixth graders, welcome to the final lesson of Mesopotamian geography. Today we're going to look at the ancient problem solvers in Mesopotamia. Great civilizations have to be great problem solvers. And this kind of gives us a nice tease to what we're going to be doing in our next unit, where we're going to be exploring Mesopotamian innovations. Two of the big Mesopotamian innovations really are huge reflections of their environment. And we're going to analyze the difficulties that the environment presented to ancient Mesopotamians and how they were able to solve these difficulties with new innovations. And if they weren't able to do this, they wouldn't have been a great society. Wouldn't have developed the first civilizations. Key terms for today include irrigation, levee, and canal. So, farming along the Tigris and the Euphrates is really dependent on the flooding. As the videos and the previous lessons have mentioned, without silt, you don't have farming. You need that silt. If it doesn't flood enough in one area, then you don't have enough soil to grow food, and you could die. If it floods too much in one area, again, it can wipe out your crops and you can die. And the flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates was unpredictable in that way. And they needed to find a way that they can control the flooding so they can maximize the amount of silt, maximize the amount of water, and carry water further and further inland to other areas. One of the big solutions to this problem is stretching the water out and spreading out the areas that the water can go to when there's a flood. And that's through irrigation canals. Irrigation is when you dig trenches, which is basically elongated holes that are open in the ground that can connect one area to another. I want you to think when you're a little kid, if you had a sand and water table. I know my kids did, and they loved it. And what they would do a lot of times, they'd have the sand, right, and they would make passageways for the water. So they have water in one area, they'd dig, and the water would flow along where they would dig, and then they could go to a new area. Well, that's essentially what irrigation canals do. You have the water of the river. By digging from it, you can then stretch out the areas where the water will go. Water will flow if you give it a place to go. And these man-made water canals, some of them narrow and thin, some of them really big and wide enough that you could put boats through, connect areas that are inland, further away from the water, that wouldn't get hit with the silt, to the river. So that way when the flooding happens, you have even more areas that can maximize the silt, and you have water resources that are made available to a larger area. This is also going to help with overcrowding. If everybody moves right by the river, eventually you're going to run out of space. Another big innovation of Mesopotamia is a levee or a dike. And these are walls that are built along the banks of a river. They're not inside a river, that's a dam. So these are walls that are built along a river, on the sides of it. So that way if the water starts to rise, the land is even higher and it can contain the water when it's flooding. So this way you can make sure that your homes and everything else don't get wiped out, and that you can direct the water when it floods to go into the fields where you want to drop off the silt for farming. Again, this is a way of preventing flooding where you don't want it and controlling it to go where you want it to happen. So here we see flooding in Mesopotamia, how widespread it can be. And here we see with irrigation that they can control where the water is going. They even would use gates to kind of stop the water from going to one area and control it to go from one area to another. Look how happy they are with their irrigation. And here we see a depiction of a levee, which is an earthen wall. So this is the normal height with the river. By building up earth right here, when a river floods, it can't go over it. And this way, it prevents it from flooding. Let's say if your house is here, it's protected. Also, we see that this soil gets really marshy and can be used for livestock to graze on. This really also has a double purpose. And as a result of this, we can see, thanks to the canals, the levees, that they're able to have controlled fields for farming, controlled fields from livestock, planting, have passageways that they can go and connect to. And we see that by using innovation and problem solving, they are able to start building up bigger and bigger settlements. Fun future things that we're going to be seeing. Oh, look, they're making bricks. That's another big innovation we're going to be talking about with our friends, the Mesopotamians. Let's watch this. Here we can see a diorama depicting irrigation canals, and you can see the levees, the walls built along the side of the banks to contain the rivers, and irrigation canals to stretch out the water. So let's go to our exit card. And what problems were caused by the seasonal flooding in Mesopotamia? And describe one of the solutions that Mesopotamians had to solve this difficulty. We talked about two of them. We talked about irrigation, and we talked about levees. So choose one of them and describe how they helped solve that problem. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great, awesome rest of your day.